Hi, my name is Prabhu Satyamurthy and this is my home studio. The objective of this video is probably not to make an instructional video of oil painting. I consider myself an oil painter, but the idea of making this video is basically it's because of a challenge thrown by my son, who thinks that I don't have the ability or the caliber to paint like the old masters. I took up the challenge and I'm here to uh, paint one of the reproductions of an old master, a Dutch artist called Johannes Vermeer. And I'm going to paint one of his most accomplished portraits, which is called The Girl with the Pearl Earring. The idea of making this video again is not to make a fake or not to sell it as a fake. The idea is to show that one, I have the caliber. In this case, the techniques used by Johannes Vermeer would be very different from the techniques that are going to be used by me. I am going to use a wet on wet painting, while Johannes Vermeer would have actually waited for each of the layers to dry and glazed one on top of the other. The idea is also to show that you can use whatever technique you want, but the end result could be quite similar. Again, the pigments used by Johannes Vermeer in those times, which is like 1665 when he completed the painting, would be very different from the pigments that are going to be used by me. I definitely have an advantage in making this piece of art. I'm going to paint or copy from a 2D piece of painting that already exists. So it gives me the ease of copying from a 2D painting to another 2D surface. I would not lose anything in translation, or I technically should not lose anything in translation from a 2D surface to 2D surface. It would have been way more difficult to paint a live model because he's actually seeing 3D and painting on a 2D surface, so that would have been more difficult for me. Having said that, Vermeer would have had something easier than what I do. Seeing this painting, it's a very famous piece of art, so the pressure on me to copy this as identical as possible is very high. We really don't know what this lady looked like in real times, so Johannes Vermeer, and we have no way to find that out. Johannes Vermeer has that ease today because how much he lost in translation of painting how that lady looked like, and how much he lost in translation while painting from that real model to a 2D surface is unknown. Having said that, the pressure on me is enormous because this is a very famous piece of art, and I need to paint as accurately as possible. So off we go with The Girl with a Pearl Earring. It's going to be painted with a series of videos. I'm not trying to be completely elaborate. I'll show you an idea of what the technique looks like, how I'm going to copy, and as I go along I would keep on devising or improvising on the technique. So I don't have a set idea in my mind as of now. Again, having said all this, whatever I've said, okay, the idea is to not make an exact replica in terms of size. My canvas size is probably twice in each of the size or each of the dimensions. It's going to be double in height and double the length, and the actual size is approximately whatever you have it in this photo. It's probably slightly bigger than this, if not more. Okay, so off we go with The Girl with the Pearl Earrings by Johannes Vermeer. This is going to be a reproduction of that. Thank you. Hi again and welcome back. I would like to analyze in today's video a bit more of what the painting looks like and what we'd be using. Okay, if you look at the painting here, it's got this dark black or dark emerald green, as I'm told after some research, and then you have the other yellows and the skin tones and the blues. So basically what I'll do is I will cover as much as surface as possible with acrylic because it dries very quickly. I use any ordinary acrylic paints. This one is KCK acrylic paint, which is made in Taiwan, I think. or made in whatever. This is a very cheap acrylic paint that I'm going to be using. That is to cover the background surface so that it dries out quickly. And then I use Winsor & Newton water soluble oil paints. I use them because it is environmentally friendly and you can clean your brushes without using any detergent or something. You can straight away clean the brushes with water. Okay, so the things that I'm going to be using, I'll just show what kind of brushes I'll be using. So the idea is to cover the surface, the background surface with black or as dark as possible. I generally don't like to use blacks or whites. I don't use them till the time I'm able to define the painting. So I would be using very dark colors here and light colors here, and only the whites or the blacks I would be using to define the final, give a definition to the final portrait. If you look at the brushes and you compare it with the painting, the result that we want is very smooth. Okay, there is a lot of glazing and blending, and the result, there are no brush marks on the painting, on the skin. So I would be using a very soft bristled brushes. This would give you a very clean skin tone, and that's what the idea is. And if I had wanted a rougher skin tone or a rougher finish, I would be using rougher bristled brushes, but in this case I'm going to use very soft bristled brushes so that a clean skin tone comes to the highlight. Okay, on the canvas, I hate to have a white. The canvas is white. Okay, so I would rather paint the white with a gray or some other color, where so that I don't have to cover the whites. It's an artist's nightmare to have a white color showing up in a picture, because the whites and the blacks, I think, has to be used to highlight the picture and bring out whatever effect you want in the picture. For example, if you look at this photograph or this portrait, the white actually has there's a reflection here on the earring, and there's white that makes the portrait stand out. So I would be covering this whole area with a background color, maybe a gray or a yellow ochre, and then I would start painting on that. Again, since I'm looking for an accuracy of this picture, and if it had been any other portrait, I would have not gone for it. But since I'm looking for an accuracy, what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw grid lines on this portrait and probably duplicate it on the canvas with a 1.5 times the grid line. So the ratio of this to that would be 1.5 times. My painting would be like 1.5 times bigger than the painting that I have. This is approximately 42 by just a second, 42 by 28, and the end result would be 1.5 times of that. So I would be drawing grid lines, and the main focus of the grid lines would be on the face, because the rest, maybe a couple of millimeters here or there, doesn't make a difference. I would try to copy. What I would do is here probably I would make the grid lines on the base side, grid lines bigger, but when it comes to the face, I would like to maintain a 1:1.5 ratio. But on the base, I would probably look for a 2 centimeter grid line, which would make it like a 3 centimeter on the canvas. So basically that's what I'm going to do, and so I'll get this done and then come back to you. Thank you. Hi again. Before we start, I'll show you what I've done to the canvas. I've applied gray acrylic paint just to kill the whites, and there's hardly any white that is left in the canvas. And I have drawn a 1.5 inch grid lines on the canvas, and also on the painting I've drawn a 1 inch grid line, so that the ratio that is going to be maintained is 1:1.5. And just for convenience, I have numbered the grid lines so that it is easier for me to match while I'm drawing the picture. So this is what I've done, and I have not drawn the grid lines on the entire canvas, because on the irrelevant part I don't need to actually have any grid lines. It's also a challenge at the end to override the pencil marks. because sometimes what happens is, despite putting all the paint and everything, the pencil marks are still visible. So what I've done is I've just drawn the grid lines on the relevant part of the canvas. So off we go with the drawing part. Okay, with the grid lines, now I have actually tried to reproduce as much as possible. I don't know whether it's visible or not. What I've done is I've marked the grid lines, and I've actually copied all the segments and the patches that are there in the face. It looks a bit small as compared to the original drawing, because the canvas is too big, but then it's fine. You'll have a lot of dark space, which means that it will look as if there's a hollow space and this lady is standing there, which is good for the painting. So this is what I've drawn. I've just copied whatever I could using the grid numbers, and so it stands like this. Hi again. Let's analyze what I've done so far and what we're going to do again. So what I've done is, on the painting, I've blocked all the unwanted surface, unwanted areas where the focus should not fall on, with a cheap acrylic paint. This is what I've done. I've used a black, dark black, to mark all the surface over here, and it's not the best of coats. You can see that it's not very clean, but we can adjust it later once the main painting actually is completed. So it's just to block the focus, to put it out of focus, and just to make sure that we concentrate on the main painting. Also then, this whole portion is acrylic, and then here what I've done is I've mixed two colors. One is the ultramarine blue and the other is raw umber, to get a dark shade. It's not black, it's a dark brown shade, and I've just mixed it with oil paint and then applied on it. So this is what I've done basically right now. So this is where we stand. Again, I will tell you what I'm going to do now. Okay, this painting, if you look at, can be broken into 5 different segments. Okay, one, we leave out the black which is there. Okay, so with the 5 different segments, if you get them right now we will get the painting right. And the first segment is the skin tone. The skin tone, we need to focus on the whites and the, I'll tell you how to mix the skin tones later. And then the second one is the eyes and the earrings. Okay, this is a shade of white and gray, so we need to focus on the whites and grays. So if you get the focus actually falls on the whites generally on any painting whenever you look at it. So if you get the whites and the grays correct, half the job is done. And then you'll have to focus on the lips, which again stands out. It's a form of red, so we'll have to focus on that. Okay, and the fourth one is the ultramarine blue that we have over here, the blues that we have here, and then the ochres on the turban. So if we get these 5 things right, I think we would get the painting right. Actually it is 6, not 5, because the ochre in the dress that she's wearing, the coat that she's wearing, and the turban are completely different. So each of them have to be treated separately, and we would focus on each of the areas with the paint mixing separately. Basically, by this I mean that when I'm making the skin tones, I would be focusing only on the skin tones and have a different shade. I would be working on the palette with different shades for the skin tones only. When I'm working on the coat, I would be working on the ochres, different tones of the ochres. When I'm working on the turban, the blue part of the turban, I would be working with the different tones of blues. The lips, I would be working with different tones of red, and the turban, the different tones of the yellow. So this is what I'd be doing in the next stages of this painting. So here we stand. Hi and welcome back. In this video I would like to discuss in order of the complexity of this project. The most difficult part I think right now is the eyes and the earrings and the whites, because uh, that's where the focus falls on. So we would actually deal the eyes and the earrings first, and then we come to the skin, and then also the lips. Why I want to take all these three together as one, the eyes, then the skin and the lips, is because we would be able to have a wet paint all throughout, and we would be able to blend the skin and the tones if required. So that's why I want to tackle in terms of priority, rank in terms of priority, the eyes, the skin tone, and the earrings. Eyes, the and the earrings, the skin tone, and the lips in this part right now. So for the eyes, I would use a raw umber for marking the darks, and then I would use a gray shade for this part, because the white part is actually not completely white. I would try to gradually pull in the whites, and then I would use a white for the place where the light actually falls on the eyes. So that's what I'm going to do. So here we go. So I'm using raw umber, some gray, pine gray, and some titanium white. So I think I'd rather finish this off and come back, and then we'll see the more difficult parts, more intricate parts on the live video. I've kept a painting here, and I'm just comparing, just to make it easier for me to compare the tones. And what I've done, I've just kept the painting of the face, not the entire painting. So what I've done is I first marked my the darker tones, the darkest tones in the eyes, and then I'll also now mark the darkest tones in the earrings, and then this I'm doing with raw umber, and then what I'll do is I'll come to the grays and the lighter tones. So I in my technique, I like to mark the darkest tones first and then work towards a lighter tone in the end. So that's what is my style of painting is. It could be different for different painters, but this is what suits me the most. So here we are. What I've done is I've marked the eyes, the white of the eyes, and I try to make the eyes look as lively as possible, and the earrings where there are the whites. And I've marked with raw umber, I've marked the darkest places in the skin, and that's what actually stands out right now. So it's getting slowly the defined tones. So I marked the darkest places, and I've actually colored the whites. So now I will go to the skin tone, where I would be using Azulinian crimson, alizarin crimson, sorry, and then I would be using yellow ochre and white. Okay, so I'll come back again. Okay, I'm showing you my paint mixing technique. What I do is I take a lot of white, add a bit of crimson, and make it pinkish first. This is mainly for the European skin tone, and then add some yellow ochre on it. And the yellow ochre content is way lesser, so probably what I do is I would have 3 parts of white, probably 1 part of crimson, and probably half a part of yellow ochre to get the whitest skin tone. And then I keep adjusting as per the tone of the skin. So this is what I'm going to do. So this is what the whitest skin tone would be, and then I'll see what other adjustments are required as I keep painting. A lot of you might be thinking how we came to this stage, but I think they're not to worry, we've gone a bit too far, but that's not the case. I'll show you what the technique I use to reach here, and it's not very difficult to copy, but uh, basically this is my palette. I've got my white here, the light colors in their so this is the darkest to the lightest. So this is how I arrange my palette, and I need to make a bit of amendments to the painting, which I'll show you right now how I do, and that would make the the idea clear of how I reached this place. So this is how I do. I add a layer of paint and take a very soft bristled brush and brush it so that the the tone is very smooth. So this is what the technique is. It's not very difficult to do, but you've got to make sure that the the brushing is proper. If you want from the light to dark, you have to do in a separate manner, in a different manner, in a distinct manner. And if you want from dark to light, for example, here I want from a dark to light, so I put the darkest shade here and brush in the direction of uh, in the direction you want. So, and this is what it is. So this is quite simple. I'm just adding a few whites wherever I think it is necessary to make the light fall on the face. So this is quite simple, and then brushing it off to blend with the skin tone. So this is all that I've done in the entire face. In fact, in other tones also, whatever I've used on the palette, it's basically what I've done is I've used the color and brush it off to blend along with the other color that is falling adjacent to that specific tone. Now I'm going to paint the turban now that I've defined what I wanted to do in the face. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to define the turban now and leave the face right now at whatever it is. So I will quickly paint the turban so that and I've mixed ultramarine blue with some white to get the whiter tones, and I'm adding a bit more of the white because it looks whiter in the actual painting. So this mixing that I'm doing straight on the painting itself, because that's how it looks like. It's been mixed here, and I've got some ultramarine blue straight, which I will apply for the darkest tones, for example these places, and then let's see how it goes. So, and then I will take here I'll mix with black this paint, ultramarine blue, white and black, and probably ultramarine blue with black directly, I'm not sure, and then we'll see how it goes. I don't think it's important to actually copy everything word to word, everything exactly identical, as long as the darks and the lights are copied well. The rest of the thing will fall in place, because the eyes actually don't see every detail, but rather measure the distances and the colors and the shades, the tones. So if as long as you can get the basics right, the rest will automatically fall in place. So what I did with the blues, basically blending the white, the ultramarine blue and the black. Here I'm going to do the yellows over here. I've got Naples yellow on the palette, and Naples yellow and some white, and I've put the dark shades on the turban itself. So let's see how it goes. So while I'm making this turban, I'm leaving these dark large dollops of paint. The reason being, it will give you a 3D effect to the picture, and it will give you a nice effect of the cloth actually coming out of the portrait. So that's why I'm leaving thick layers of Naples yellow and white and probably even black on the painting. So now this is where we stand. The ochres from the coat still to be completed, the whites are there, but this is going to be difficult for me, but I decided to stop here and leave this painting unfinished and sign it right away. As a student of art, this is my humble tribute to the Dutch master Johannes Vermeer and his model, who would have stood there for probably more than 100 hours posing for the artist. In my opinion, there can be only one girl with a pearl earring, and I rest my case here. The master wins hands down for producing such a genius work of art, and probably the most accomplished for me portraiture. It would be a disgrace to the art world if I even attempt to complete this painting, and hence I decide to leave my portrait with a blemish. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and there it is, the girl with the pearl earring blemished.